Hello everyone. My name is Clara, and at 78 years old, I have gathered lessons that no book can fully capture. Each line on my face holds a story. Each gray hair has its place, a marker of time's quiet yet persistent work on my spirit. Youth slips away in the blink of an eye, and while we often believe we understand the world around us, it's only time that grants us true insight. When I was younger, I saw the world as an endless field of possibilities, each decision seeming like a promising path. I was eager, driven, and convinced that success lay in speed. But as time revealed the twists and turns of life, I learned the beauty of slowing down, of reflecting before charging ahead. I still remember the impulsive choices I made, decisions that, had I paused to listen to the wisdom of someone older, might have turned out differently. As young people, we tend to believe we know best, that we are invincible. We rush to accomplish, to experience, to make a mark. But pride, that stubborn confidence, has often been the reason for my stumbles. Those moments of failure, while painful, taught me far more than any early success. Over time, I realized that true wisdom doesn't come from quick answers or certainty. It comes from the ability to learn, to grow, and to understand our mistakes. Have you ever considered how many times you've brushed off advice from someone with more experience, convinced that you knew better? Time teaches us in its own gentle way. It doesn't shout or force us, it simply reveals, moment by moment, the consequences of our choices. Every struggle, every scar, every invisible mark on our hearts is part of life's tapestry. A life not free of suffering, but one enriched by each lesson drawn from pain. So, here I am at 78, looking back on a journey of learning, of realizing the importance of listening more and speaking less. There's a saying I once heard: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we might listen twice as much as we speak. It's a simple truth, yet it has never resonated as strongly as it does now. The wealth we accumulate through life isn't material. It's experience, a treasure only time can give. In youth, we crave quick answers and immediate results. But age brings the gift of patience, teaching us that it's not how quickly we reach a goal that matters, but the wisdom we gather along the way. If I could offer one piece of advice to those listening, it would be this: don't rush. Cherish each moment. Take the time to listen to those who have walked this path before you. Sometimes, the answers we seek are hidden in the words of someone who's been around a little longer. Life moves at its own rhythm. Every moment, every challenge has a purpose, something valuable to teach. So let's embrace that wisdom, savoring life for the journey it is, knowing that every day brings us a little closer to understanding its deeper meaning. As I reflect on my life, I can't help but think about how much I've learned over the years. At 78, I can say with certainty that the foundation of our existence is built upon the relationships we form with others. When we're young, we often believe the world revolves around us, that we are the ones in control of everything. But as time passes, we come to realize that we are like boats drifting in a vast ocean, surrounded by people, friends, family, love, that guide us along our journey. It took me many years to truly grasp this lesson. Looking back, I can see how many times I shut myself off from advice, dismissing the wisdom of others, thinking I knew better. I failed to recognize that every encounter, every friendship, and even every lost love left a mark on me, shaping the person I am today. There's one thing that a dear friend of mine, Anthony, said that I will never forget. He told me, "Clara, it's not about how many people you know, but about how many people you truly listen to." At that time, I didn't fully understand his words. I was surrounded by people, but I was always in a hurry to tell my own story, to get my ideas out there, to be heard. I thought my opinions were the most important, that my truth was the absolute one. How many times did I fail to listen to those who genuinely wanted to help me? People who had walked through pain and hardship similar to mine? It's funny, when you're young, you believe you're invincible, that no one else could possibly understand what you're going through. But the truth is, the generations before us have experienced much of what we're facing now, and they know how to listen to the voices of experience. Those voices, those stories, can make all the difference. Relationships, especially friendships, teach us so much about empathy. They show us that we are not alone in our struggles and that sometimes, simply listening is all we need to make a significant impact. It's something I wish I had learned sooner, but I'm grateful for the wisdom I have now. When we're young, we often get so caught up in our own goals and ambitions that we forget to look around and understand what others are doing. Life, however, is not just about pursuing our own paths in isolation. Over time, I've come to realize that the greatest lessons often come in moments of silence, when we pause to truly listen to those around us. These lessons don't come from textbooks or social media. They come from the stories people carry within them. Usually, the answers to our doubts lie in the experiences of others. But to truly hear them, we must first learn to quiet our own voices. I recall a time in my youth when I was going through a tough period in my marriage. I felt lost, frustrated, and alone. Instead of seeking advice from those who had been through similar struggles, I retreated inwardly, convinced that no one could understand what I was going through. It was in the midst of this turmoil that Maria, an older neighbor, reached out to me. She had endured a long, challenging marriage, and that day, she shared something with me that I would never forget. Clara, every relationship is built on the art of compromise. Sometimes you give in, sometimes the other person does. But what truly matters is that both of you are willing to fight together. That time, her words didn't resonate with me. I was too consumed by my own emotions to see the depth in what she was saying. I brushed her advice aside, thinking that she couldn't possibly understand my situation. But years later, as I faced similar struggles again, I found myself remembering her words. And that's when I truly understood the wisdom she had shared. Her message wasn't just about relationships. It was about resilience, about the willingness to endure and grow together. The sacrifices and compromises that relationships require are not weaknesses. They are the building blocks of lasting connection. It wasn't until I reflected on her experience, years later, that I saw the profound depth of what she had said. Life's greatest lessons often come from those who have lived through the challenges we are facing. And sometimes, we need to learn to step back, listen, and truly absorb the wisdom that others offer, even if it takes time for it to sink in. In life, the most valuable lessons are often learned not through achievements, but through shared struggles and the willingness to hear the experiences of others. It's a reminder that sometimes, the best thing we can do is simply be quiet and listen. I've come to understand that the relationships that teach us the most are often the ones that challenge us. These relationships force us to question our certainties and, more importantly, they show us the value of patience and understanding. When we're young, we're in a rush. We want results fast, answers now. But relationships, much like wisdom, require time to grow and mature. Over the years, I've learned that often what holds us back from learning from others is our own ego. The belief that we don't need help, that we can do everything on our own, keeps us from opening ourselves up to valuable insights. If I could offer one piece of advice to young people, it would be this. Never underestimate the power of a good conversation. Take the time to listen to older friends, or even those with whom you might not agree, because in the end, what stays with us are those moments of exchange, those seemingly simple bits of advice that, at the time, feel insignificant but, over time, become profound lessons. Let me share an example. Years ago, when I was struggling with a decision in my career, I turned to a mentor who had decades of experience in the field. First, I didn't think his advice could help me. After all, times had changed, and I thought I knew what I was doing. But he patiently listened to me and then said something I'll never forget. The answers you're looking for are already within you. What you need is perspective. And sometimes, that means giving yourself permission to slow down and listen, to others and to yourself. In that moment, I didn't fully grasp his words. It wasn't until later, when I faced another crossroads in my life, that I realized the depth of his advice. What he had given me wasn't a quick fix or a solution, but a new way of thinking, a way that allowed me to trust in my own journey, while still being open to learning from the experiences of others. Wisdom doesn't come to us in one moment, or from one person. It's shaped by the stories we share and the people we choose to surround ourselves with. Now, at 78, I look back and realize that the legacy we leave in the lives of others isn't just defined by the advice we give or the material possessions we leave behind. It goes much deeper. It's found in our essence, in the experiences we've had, and even in the way we choose to live our lives. The love we give, the joy we share, these are all part of the legacy we leave. So, if there's anything I've learned, it's that the real gifts in life often come in the form of quiet moments of connection, where wisdom flows not through grand gestures, but through shared understanding and presence. It's in these moments that we find the true richness of life. Many people, especially after the age of 50, fall into the trap of thinking that certain aspects of life, like sex, should be sidelined as if they no longer matter. But nothing could be further from the truth. The legacy we leave behind also includes how we perceive our own sexuality, and it's crucial that we teach the younger generations that pleasure and intimacy do not have an expiration date. Just as I have learned to cherish relationships throughout my life, I also understand that physical and emotional connections with others remain vital. Even as the years pass, it's not just about the practical advice we give to younger people on how to handle career challenges or life's mistakes. It's about showing them that, even as our bodies age, our soul and desires are still very much alive. When we talk about legacy, we're talking about how we can inspire future generations to live fully, without fear of aging. We should not fear the pursuit of pleasure and happiness as we grow older. The mistake many make is thinking that, with age, certain aspects of life should be silenced or forgotten. But I've learned that the greatest gift we can give to the younger generation is the example of a full life. A life that includes, yes, how we deal with sex and intimacy as we age. Why should we stop living fully just because society tells us we're too old for that? The legacy I want to leave is that it's never too late to allow yourself to seek joy, to connect deeply with someone, to enjoy life in every aspect. When we talk about things we shouldn't do as we approach our 50s, it's clear that, like in relationships, we should not succumb to the stigmas or limitations imposed on us. Sex doesn't disappear with age, it transforms, takes on new shades, but it remains an essential part of our humanity. This is certainly a part of the legacy we leave behind. What I want is for today's youth and future generations to look at us, the older generation, and see that there's still so much to live for, that they understand that pleasure and intimacy are not reserved for the young, but are a continuous and natural part of life. The legacy I wish to leave the world is not just a collection of lived experiences, but a message that living fully in every area of life is the way to go. Even into our 50s, 60s, 70s, or beyond, sex is not something that should be neglected or dismissed. On the contrary, it can be a source of joy, connection, and self-awareness. And this is what I want the next generations to understand, to live, to love, to feel it never gets old. This, perhaps, is the true legacy. Let me share a vivid example. A few years ago, I met a couple in their 60s who had been married for over 40 years. They had raised children, traveled together, and gone through many ups and downs. I asked them about their relationship, and the wife said something I will never forget. Even now, after all these years, we still find new ways to connect. It may not be the same as when we were young, but it's deeper, more meaningful. Sex, for us, isn't just about physicality, it's about intimacy, about still wanting to touch each other's lives in ways that matter. Their story made me realize something important. Intimacy doesn't fade, it transforms. And the way we embrace that transformation can either limit or enhance our lives as we grow older. The joy of connecting with another person, of sharing experiences, and yes, even of enjoying pleasure, should not be constrained by age. It should be celebrated as a vital part of what makes us human. So, what I'm leaving behind is not just the experiences I've had, but the message that there is no time limit on living fully. There is no expiration date on joy, connection, or love. These are the things that give our lives depth and meaning, no matter how old we are. And this, I believe, is the legacy we should all aim to leave for those who come after us. Another crucial point to consider is that communication has never been more important at this stage in life. If there's one thing we should avoid, it's stopping the conversation about how we feel, our insecurities, our desires. Yes, our bodies change as we get older, but that doesn't mean our desires disappear. Communication is the key to a satisfying sexual life. And many couples lose their way precisely because they stop talking about it. Sometimes it's due to embarrassment, fear of judgment, or simply because they believe they shouldn't be concerned about it anymore. What I've learned over the years is that silence is a dangerous enemy in relationships. So, never stop talking about what you like, what bothers you, and most importantly, what brings you pleasure. We should never underestimate the power of good communication, especially when it comes to sex after 50. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is ignoring the signals your body is sending. Many people overlook the fact that, after 50, sexual health requires more attention. Hormonal changes, vaginal dryness, erectile dysfunction. These are issues that can arise, but they have solutions. Ignoring these changes is a mistake. If something isn't working as it used to, seek help. Talk to your doctor. There are now many treatments and options available to make sex more comfortable and enjoyable. Don't let physical discomfort prevent you from continuing to enjoy your intimate life. Sometimes, just a simple consultation can completely change the way you experience sex at this stage of life. For example, I once spoke with a couple who were struggling with intimacy as they entered their 60s. The wife was feeling frustrated because they were no longer able to connect physically in the same way they had in their younger years. After a candid conversation with a healthcare provider, they discovered that simple lifestyle adjustments, like better hydration and using lubricants, could dramatically improve their experience. What struck me most about their story wasn't just the physical solution. It was the renewed sense of intimacy and closeness that resulted from their open conversation about their needs and desires. This example demonstrates how important it is to keep the dialogue open, not only to address the physical changes, but also to maintain the emotional and psychological connection that intimacy provides. It's a reminder that taking the time to communicate openly about sex and desire, no matter what stage of life we're in, is vital. Age should not mean the end of pleasure, connection, or growth in relationships. So, the message here is clear. As we age, we should not shy away from discussing our desires and challenges. Addressing sexual health with open communication can lead to a more fulfilling, rewarding intimate life. Silence should never stand in the way of connection, and there is always room for improvement, both physically and emotionally, in maintaining a satisfying relationship. Finally, the greatest mistake of all is denying yourself the experience of pleasure due to the opinions of others. There's a common misconception when it comes to sex in later life, as if it's something shameful, something to avoid or hide. This couldn't be further from the truth. Pleasure is part of our nature, and it has no age limit. Don't let the fear of what others think control your choices. Just because society imposes certain limits, doesn't mean you have to accept them. At 50, 60, 70, or beyond, sex can still be a source of joy, connection, and intimacy. What we should never do is strip away this essential part of our humanity. Sexuality after 50 is not something to be ashamed of or disappointed by. One thing we should avoid is limiting ourselves, clinging to old stereotypes, or stopping the pursuit of pleasure simply because we believe we're past our prime. There is always time to discover new ways to connect with others and ourselves. After all, life continues, and pleasure remains an essential part of it, regardless of age. If there's one thing life has taught me, it's that every experience we live, every relationship we build, and even the way we experience intimacy contributes to the legacy we leave behind. Aging is not an end, it's a new beginning, full of discoveries and moments that can be as intense as youth. When we realize that pleasure and love don't have an expiration date, we begin to live more fully, connecting more deeply with our true selves. Let me share a story to illustrate this shift. I once met a couple in their 60s who were rediscovering their intimacy after years of believing that their best days were behind them. They had settled into a routine, unaware that their desire for each other was still very much alive. It wasn't until they began to openly communicate about their needs, experimenting with new ways to connect, that they reawakened the joy and passion in their relationship. They discovered that intimacy isn't confined to a specific time in life. It's something that evolves and can bring even deeper connections as we age. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you view your life 10, 20, or even 30 years from now? Have you ever paused to think about the legacy you're creating today? I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What are your reflections? And where do you see yourself heading? Your experiences matter. And the more we share, the more we grow together. If you found value in this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss future videos. Your support helps me continue bringing these important insights. And of course, share this video with family and friends, especially with someone you think needs to hear this message right now. On the screen, you'll see a link to a special video I've prepared just for you. In it, I'll be sharing some fantastic tips on how to keep building the best version of yourself at any age. Click now and join me for the next step on this journey.